Welcome to another edition of Credit Matters TV. I'm Richard Courtwright, a Managing Director in the Corporate Ratings Group. Regulated electric utilities tend to have among the strongest and most stable credit profiles across all of the corporate ratings sector. Ratings activity in the electric sector has been relatively muted over the last several years, and those years include the Great Recession, which just goes to show how stable this sector really is. Now, it doesn't mean that electric utilities are immune from ratings activity, and in fact, that's why we're here today, to talk about one of the largest utilities that we cover and a rating activity that we recently took. A couple months ago, we revised the outlook on Pacific Gas and Electric to negative from stable. And I'm here in the studio today with Ann Selting, who covers many of our Western United States electric utilities, to talk about that ratings action. So Ann, let me ask you, what sparked our outlook change on PG&E?
Sure. I mean, essentially it was two reasons. The first is that management reputation has been damaged by the San Bruno accident, and other challenges that it's faced in the last year to 18 months. The second issue is that we're looking at rising costs directly related to the accident that are hard for us to quantify. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but essentially a lot of the costs are going to be determined by two entities: the California Public Utilities Commission and its future orders and directives responding to the accident, and the National Transportation Safety Board, which is responsible for issuing a report on the root causes of the accident. And just to remind viewers, when I refer to the San Bruno accident, I'm talking about the September 9th rupture of a PG&E transmission line in San Bruno. San Bruno is a neighborhood south of San Francisco. The rupture caused an explosion and a fire, and unfortunately killed 8 people, injured dozens more, and destroyed 34 homes.
You've already pretty much referred to it, but what are our overall concerns with this management of PG&E?
PG&E is battling a lot of negative public sentiment, and San Bruno sort of capped the pretty challenging year in 2010. Three things are sort of harming its public image. The first is Prop 16. That was a June 2010 ballot initiative. That ballot initiative PG&E spent heavily on, and it was only funder of $46 million. Prop 16 would have blocked municipal utilities, or municipalities rather, from offering service that would have competed with PG&E. The measure lost handily, but more importantly, not all customers and voters, but at least some came away from that with the sentiment that PG&E is able to spend its way onto the ballot to shape business threats, and as a large corporation, that didn't sit well with everybody. The second issue that they're battling is smart meters. The California Public Utilities Commission has authorized PG&E to spend $2 billion to put smart meters in every business and home in virtually all of Northern California that's PG&E's service territory. Not everyone in Northern California opposes smart meters, but there's a vocal and organized constituency that has really come out to shape the debate, negatively so. PG&E is really trying to get across its message that these meters are safe, but one of the issues or concerns that they're not safe. There's no scientific evidence for that claim, so it makes it very difficult to just sort of manage the issue, because it's a very emotional response, surprisingly, against these smart meters. Additionally, there's been some distraction on the part of management. A senior manager in charge of smart meters was basically caught trying to infiltrate a chat room devoted to opposing smart meters using an alias. He was terminated from the company, but that's really been kind of a distraction for the company as well. And so when you step back and you sort of say, where is the company on managing this? Nationally, there's really not been too much problem with adoption of smart meters. Some, but not to the degree you've seen for PG&E. And really what we're doing right now is we're installing these meters in Northern California, and yet there's a separate proceeding with the California Public Utilities Commission to look at how customers can uninstall them. So this has been a major public relations challenge for the company, and so far it's not winning the battle. And then finally, you know, the San Bruno accident really does levy more serious charges against PG&E, that both its pressure testing procedures and its record keeping may have been deficient to the levels that it could have compromised safety. Now, we won't really know for sure. We don't prejudge that outcome, but that's the NTSB's job. But certainly from the public court of opinion, there are some serious concerns about whether PG&E is operating its business safely.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of downside potential here, certainly with respect to the credit rating. What, in your view, will cause us to actually take the rating down, and what time frame would you be looking at to do so, if that's the route we took?
Yeah, we're looking at this over roughly the next 12 months, and we're going to be watching two things. Management strategy. We just talked about the fact that there's been a major overhaul in management. Now we expect a new CEO of PG&E Corp to be announced any day now. What exactly is the new management team and the existing management team? What is their strategy for cultivating a culture of safety and winning back really the confidence of the regulators, which is diminished substantially, and of their customers, and seeing them as a operator of electric and gas assets that is safe. So what's their culture? What's their plan to get to a safety culture? That's critical. The second is whether costs deviate from our expectations, and I'll just briefly bucket those here, but see our rationales for more of a recitation on the costs. But there are three components. The first is basically third-party liability, lawsuits stemming from the damage of the accident. Estimates are that pre-tax will be as much as $400 million, but importantly, insurance proceeds will cover, we expect will cover all of that, and that's factored into our rating right now. Second is indirect costs, and that's the bucket that's very hard to handicap. That covers things like testing of pipelines and verification, validation of PG&E's records of its gas transmission system. Management has revised estimates on those costs twice. We're looking at $550 million pre-tax. That's management's upper bound. That's our base case. In 2011 alone, there are going to be more costs in 2012. We don't know what those are because it's really going to depend on the investigations of both the CPUC and the NTSB's findings. The last thing I would say about that, though, of that $550 million, we don't know what, if any, the Commission will allow recovery of. The last bucket is the wild card. Could be big, could be small. And that is fines and penalties. The California Public Utilities Commission has opened an investigation into looking at two things: whether record-keeping practices that PG&E had violated state public utility code or other laws. And secondly, if record-keeping was deficient, then did that contribute or cause the San Bruno accident? Now, fines are a hard thing to sort of get your arms around. We have not tried to handicap what that number is. What we can say to the folks listening is that the Commission in its investigation has said, hey, we're going to look to the NTSB to tell us what the root causes are. Because that report is not due until fall at the earliest, don't look for any sort of certainty on fines until at the earliest fall 2011 and probably sometime into 2012. So on balance, obviously, we're going to update our rationales, and I just say the one final thing to look for is next milestone is probably the California Public Utilities Commission is subject any day now, certainly by late May, to put out a report on its own assessment of San Bruno, and it's constructed an independent panel to look at that. The panel hasn't said very much to date. As I said, they're expected to say something by late May. Take a look at that report. It may have some indication of where the Commission's going.
Okay, great. Ann, thanks a lot. We'll leave it there for now. And thank you for tuning in.